Hi, everyone, and welcome to China EVs and More, where my co-host, Lei Xing, in the same time zone, Lei Xing, and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the China EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. If you enjoy this room, please help us get the word out to other enthusiasts. And of course, tune in again next week. My name is Tu Li, and I am the Managing Director at Sino Auto Insights, a management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.com, which of course, I encourage you all to do. Lei, good evening. Can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, I am your co-host, Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. This is episode number 79. And good evening. I no longer have to say good morning to you. This is our first episode where Tu and I are in the same time zone, on the same continent. And welcome back home. A jet-lagged Tu.
Yes, and if you're wondering, Lei did not come to China. Let's just say that. If you're wondering which home we're talking about.
So, Tu, housekeeping. Yesterday, we had our 10,000th download for the podcast. So we reached that milestone.
Congratulations, Lei. Congratulations.
That's correct. And you're back, so it's double happiness. Oh, boy. Before, I think I want to spend a little bit of time to talk about this 10K before we get into the headlines. Our first episode was published on May 20th, 2021. So we've published 75 episodes. We've done, obviously, this is number 79, missing a couple of episodes. But so 10,000 downloads, 15 months, 75 episodes, at least 4,500 minutes of content.
And how I see it, Lei, we're about 1,900 episodes shy of getting our $200 million deal from Spotify. So.
And just let me go through some of the numbers. Our podcast has been downloaded by listeners from 1,160 cities in 79 countries. And
wow.
North America, Europe, Asia, and Oceania accounting for 42, 26, 25, and 5% of the total downloads so far. So our biggest audience...
Truly global.
Obviously are coming from more than half, 60... So 2/3 are coming from North America and Europe, okay? And mobile downloads, 78%. iPhone devices, 2/3. And 41% are from the Apple podcast.
You Android folks need to show up. We don't care what platform you listen to us on. So.
Yeah, and all our top 5 episodes are Max episodes, with the one with Omar Khalaf, the only one that has 300 downloads, and the other ones have at least 200. So just some of the numbers, and we reached 1,000 downloads on September 8th, 2021. So that's 4 months after. And since then, 9,000 more downloads. It's been, it's every Thursday evening. It's like a ritual now, you know?
Yes, it's a habit. It's become a habit, right? We've done it more than 23 times, so it's a habit now.
And it seems every week is revolved around Thursday evening.
Well, what used to be my Friday morning, right? Let me add to this, Lei, and you can continue. Thank you to everyone. I'm a little bit fuzzy-headed right now, but that 10,000 number is just mind-boggling because Lei and I did this as an experiment. And I couldn't be happier with how I believe Lei and I complement each other with how we look at things, his historical view and updated strategy of what the China market has evolved into and how that is affecting or going to affect Europe and the United States. And for me, taking sort of my old school auto experience with my Silicon Valley experience and cramming that all into my China experience in the automotive EV startup space, and then having that perspective, I think it resonates because we have a ton of loyal listeners, number one, and then number two, this broad audience. That 79 number is just mind-boggling to me, Lei. So
yeah, and we make a good couple, huh? So
we're the TV
the
couple.
CEM couple. Yeah, it's I think what's been happening every day and week. Let's say, for example, that Bloomberg article on BYD and tons of the others on now mainstream, finance media covering the China EV AV mobility space. We can see that happening. We can see people waking up, right? Hopefully, we've done our share of this kind of movement. We're not perfect, but
well, let me correct you really quick, because I know you didn't mean it this way, but I almost feel not waking up, but getting woken up because of the strength of a BYD, because of a strength and the quality and the beauty of the design of some of these cars from these China EV companies, right? I think they have to be heard now because they're resonating so loudly in so many different places now, right?
Yeah, it's just amazing to see let's just say the last year and a half that we've done this pod, how much change has happened, whether it's geopolitically, whether it's on the technical side, whether it's on these companies' global ambitions, whether it's on the Western audience paying more attention to what's going on in China. It's mesmerizing.
And then on top of that, it is a traditional sector that's being disrupted, that has a pandemic that it's dealing with, that has challenging issues with data privacy, data security, chips, and all these other factors coming into play, and innovation and expense and how cheap things have gotten just in the last 18 months with regards to the hardware software stacks too, right?
Yeah, and the latest factor is electricity rationing. Who would have thought that, right? I mean, but anyways, back to you. Let me ask you, how does it feel not having to do PCR test every day?
Oh.
You have to get used to it, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about my wife a little bit because, let me press rewind for everyone that's listening. I had this plan for several months, headed back, going to the auto show, spending a few months, but some things have changed, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But I took a 34-hour trip that I arrived in the United States for yesterday afternoon at around 12 o'clock. My flight schedule was originally flying out of PEK at noon, arriving in Hong Kong around 4:30, and then getting on a plane at about 7 p.m. to JFK, having a 12-hour layover, and then flying to Detroit. So PEK to Hong Kong, a breeze. And then we got on the plane from Hong Kong to JFK. We were on the runway. The plane accelerated. And then it has never happened to me ever. And it freaked me out a little bit. The plane just screeches to a halt right on the runway as it's accelerating. And it pulls off the runway. And for about 10 minutes, the pilot says nothing. And then he was like, oh, we were stopped by mission control or whatever, the flight control, because there was some debris on the runway. And now our brakes are too hot, so we cannot take off again for another hour. And then, so we're sitting there for 45 minutes. We're thinking we're still going to take off. And I have an 11-hour layover, so no big deal, right? Okay, I'm going to be missing 2 hours of that 11-hour layover, no problem. And so they're like, oh, so some faulty control messages came up. So now we have to go back to the gate. And now that we've gone back to the gate, our crew has surpassed their hours for the week. And we can't find another crew. So we're back at Hong Kong airport at the gate. Everybody's freaking out. And they're like, okay, The next flight out is 11 a.m. the next morning. And it's like 9 o'clock right now, 9 p.m. in Hong Kong local time. And so, of course, there are 90% Chinese students going back to the U.S. to go to school for university on this flight. And so I go to the gate as everybody's kind of complaining and kind of wondering what's going on. I go to this woman. Her name is Yuing Chung at Cathay Pacific. She's a sweetheart and such a great help. I just communicated my frustration to her, and I said, look, my final destination is not JFK, it's DTW. And she looks at me like, oh.
You had that Detroit shirt on, right?
Yeah.
So that was obvious.
So she rolled her eyes and she's like, I'm so busy, because there's like 8 other people talking at her, not to her. And so I sit down. Half an hour later, she comes over and she whispers to me, she's like, there's a 2 a.m. flight, but I can't get everybody else on. So I'm going to get you on it. And everybody else gets to go on the 11. So don't say anything.
Oh, man.
So I got on a 2 a.m. flight, and I had luggage with me. And I was like, is this luggage going to come with me, or is it going to get lost? She's like, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And, Cathay before COVID was one of the best airlines you could fly. Full stop. They've been struggling because of what's going on in Hong Kong because of COVID, and it's gotten it's been challenging for them. So to see that level of customer service from Yuing Chung was amazing. I got on the plane at 2 a.m., had a 3-hour layover, which was perfect because I was able to clear customs, get my luggage, recheck it, and then head over I was in Terminal 1, I think, in JFK, and I had to get to Terminal 5 and did that. And got here, rented my car. So if you're wondering, I rented a full-size car and I got an SUV. So I'm driving a RAV4 right now that I'm renting for. And my brother-in-law just basically was like, holy shit, that's a lot. I'm renting it for $1,911 a month. So
for a month?
For a month, yeah. So that's the monthly cost. That's a monthly cost. So like $50-something a day.
Not too bad. Yeah, not too bad.
Not bad. But when you have brothers and sisters that work at GM and Stellantis, and they can get you a deal for $500 a month on a $50,000 car, they're like, "What are you doing?" And so, anyways, long story short, my sister, who works at General Motors at the tech center, and this is when I was sending you those pictures of the tech center, you and Frank, because we drove by, and my first stop for lunch was Potbelly. And so went to Potbelly, and that's when we took those pictures. And
so all the memories came back, huh?
Yeah, and the 2.5 years felt like nothing passed, to be frank. And the things that I noticed right away that you forget about, obviously, right? The trucks, the no masks, the enormity of the trucks, how big they are, and how fast people go. And I got to tell you, Lei, you know how they cut in China? If there's 2 meters of space, they'll cut in. I'm anticipating that, and I'm kind of like, and it doesn't happen, and I'm like, okay, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, there's several things that you have to get used to. The testing, right? The not wearing masks, how people drive, how wide the roads are, how wasteful they are.
Yes. Yes.
There's no bicycles. There's no mopeds.
Yes.
There's no people walking or riding bicycles on the highways. I'm just, I'm over.
Oh, and then I drove from my sister's house to my other sister's house, and she lives in Lake Orion, Rochester Hills area. From if folks are in Michigan and listening, you guys know what I'm talking about. And I had to drive through dirt roads. I'm like, whoa, what am I doing here? So I went from paved to dirt, but it was kind of like out in the sticks a little bit where the yards are bigger. But and we went and saw Top Gun today.
It was awesome, right?
And surprisingly, I did not fall asleep watching it because it was a little bit cheesy.
It was
a little cheesy, but it was so entertaining. And I could totally see why the Chinese government did not want to show that.
It was too American macho.
Every
American wins at the end of the day. That type of.
Every Chinese young man would have been like, "I need to join the U.S. Navy." But it was a good show, good show. And so now, after this podcast, I'm probably just going to pass out, or I'm going to stay up for about 5 more hours, one way or the other.
Yeah,
yeah. And then, I sent you those pictures. So we went to that Potbelly across the street from the tech center, the GM Tech Center in Warren, Michigan, and in the parking lot, just across the street from the tech center, was 5 2023 Corvettes. 4 of them were Z06s, and they all had M plates, or what we call manufacturer plates.
You're in heaven.
And so,
you're in, right?
I guess you grow up here, you take that for granted, and then you leave, and then seeing these camouflage cars in Beijing, a Li Auto or whatever, it's a big deal. But when I was a little kid, I saw that stuff all the time, and I just took it for granted, I guess. So,
anyways, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for you.
But
coming back and
we have a lot of plans, huh? We have a lot of plans. Huh?
Yeah, coming back and get used to things a little bit in the first few days and weeks. But it's
We should also mention that part of our recognition from the podcast was being invited and being recognized more by conferences and things like that. So I think we're going to be participating in more of those in the future, right? So
yeah, and I think getting these guests on, whether through yours or my previous contacts, that's all through these years in the industry. So,
and I think a lot of it has to do with, and I'm going to be quite frank with this, but we know what we're talking about. Number one. Number two, I think there's a level of trust there that we're not going to try to exploit or give them any gotchas, right?
Yeah.
So
we've spent 20 minutes talking about the milestone and your trip.
My personal life. So
that was interesting, by the way. But you're here, looking forward to the fall. There's lots of events going on here in the stateside. Right, there's that the car week, the Pebble Beach, and then you this weekend you get to see the Woodward, right, which is here in the neighborhood. That would be awesome.
So my brother-in-law has 3 AMC Rebel machines that they're show cars. So he's going to wake up at 4:30 to find a place to park his Rebel machine on Woodward Avenue on Saturday. 4:30 in the morning, by the way. So for anyone that's listening that's in Michigan or in the United States, Midwest, Chicago, whatever, that wants to get in touch, shoot me an email or whatever.
Awesome.
Send me a note.
Awesome. So we can go back to the headlines. let me read off from what I prepared. So August 12th. So when after we logged off, that big announcement from CATL, 100 gigawatt hours, nearly 7.5 billion euros investment in that factory in Hungary.
Right.
With Mercedes being their first and largest customer. Huge investment. Shanghai, Tesla Keqiang.
Let me interrupt you for a second. These are not only huge investments, but they're endorsements by German OEM and a US OEM now for CATL's technology and supply chain supply capabilities, right? So Ford and Mercedes are veterans in the business. And so this is like a stamp of approval, right?
Right. And we can talk about a little bit. This is on a bigger picture. This is the jostle. The geopolitical jostle. So CATL had just announced a delay of their plans in the U.S. or in North America, for that matter, and now they have this other announcement in Europe, right? So and Hungary is starting to become a hub for Chinese EV Inc. So CATL's there. Eve Energy, which reportedly is supplying those cylindrical batteries for BMW,
yes,
is planning to build in Hungary. NIO's building their power swap station plant in Hungary. BYD already has a plant in Hungary. So interesting location playing out for China EV Inc.
And we should acknowledge that Hungary is part of Eastern Europe, so the wages are a little bit cheaper. I think the labor rates are a little bit cheaper, and I think friendlier for automotive than a Germany, which is very union. So,
I mean, CATL now is going to have 2 plants in Europe, right? Germany and this new one. So on Saturday, so Giga Shanghai reached the 1 million production milestone. So 2/3 of Tesla's 3 million vehicles have come out of Shanghai in 2.5 years, roughly.
In two and a half years, let me repeat that.
It's a monster. And then a couple of BYD's announcements into Cambodia and Denmark. So their global trek continues.
You saw my tweet, right? Cambodia has 24,000 annual sales for cars. So it is like mice nuts in the grand scheme of things, but BYD is leaving no stone unturned.
The what's his name, Lou Todd? I see him posting stuff on what's going on in Australia, right? I think they're being delivered soon, the Atto 3. And then Li Auto earnings we're going to get into. There's a bit of kind of debate going on, especially on the same day that XPeng announces that super fast charging, 5 minutes, 200 kilometers. There's a bit of debate going on over there. And over here this week, while you were traveling, was the big IRA signed into law. A lot of confusion on what the tax credits for EVs, right? Polestar names the O2 the Polestar 6. NIO puts their second battery fast charging station in Norway into service. More information already on the L8 and the L7 from CEO Keqiang. And that big visit by Keqiang to BYD, I think we can talk about that a little bit. And rumors that CATL is going to provide, CATL and BYD is going to provide the batteries for the Xiaomi EV. And on the 18th, so just today, China time, the L9 started production. And Tesla shortens wait times for all models in China. That was interesting. Could be both or bad. I think it's good because they had the production upgrade, right? And again, finally, what we talked at the beginning of the show, the high temperatures in Sichuan and Chongqing forcing plant shutdowns involving, CATL and others. So, and interesting things happening with the Dodge coming out with the Hornet and the Charger. That was interesting.
The Charger looks great, I think.
So to kind of maybe talk about Li earnings, I think what was shocking was this revelation, this confirmation, this that the One is falling out of favor already, and the management admitted, and so this cannibalization effect that we've been talking about, even with L9 being significantly higher priced than the One, but much updated features, and with the CEO himself saying on Weibo, if you're forget about One, if you're right, the LA is coming out soon. Yeah, this is just
Well, yeah, they were definitely, and to you and I, it was obvious, but I don't know why the internal folks thought it would have an additive effect instead of a substitution effect to the Li One. The pricing, but the rest is too similar, I guess.
So I think that was one thing, and the other thing is this whole debate again on Keqiang saying, this is an EV with the range extender, not an ICE with the battery. and the guy over in Great Wall Motor Way, right? There was this war of words that just this debate about plugins and e-revs.
Look, if you got to explain your technology multiple times, it ain't working.
But
right?
what's going on at Li Auto seems to be biting what Keqiang said himself, because he said their products are different iPhones, so iPhone Pro, iPhone Pro Max, and so one is almost like your iPhone 12 or iPhone 11. Now iPhone 14 is going to come out, and you're going to upgrade to a new one. So one is falling out of favor. And considering there's the new platform, the L9 is based, and they'll have this L8 and the L7. So maybe it was planned anyways, but it just seems that one was on a good run, but now it's going to end. And that's...
But this is where the technology and analogy just doesn't hold weight because of the CapEx cost, because of... So number one, Apple plans for that cannibalization. Yeah. I don't believe Li Auto planned for that.
Based on the earnings call, even the management said they were surprised. So,
right, and to top that off, didn't Edison send a bad report or a report? Deutsche Bank sent out a report.
Lower the PT. Is that
target price?
PP,
target
whatever.
price. Yeah.
And the other thing is just that the guidance, right? Still under 10K a month. And considering that most of the September deliveries are now being planned for the L9, because they've been putting this 10K out saying, we're going to do that. And yeah.
They need to add more separation on pricing to the Li One, number one. Number two, by the end of this year, are they going to zero out sales of the Li One? That's a bit extreme, but it's got to be in the hundreds. It's going to move into the hundreds, right?
Because LA, right, they said it's going to be much pulled ahead. So LA and the timing between the announcement and delivery is going to be shortened. So I'd imagine it's going to be 8 and 9 by the end of this year, and then next year will be the 7 plus the BV models that are coming. Which by the
talk about manufacturing hell, man.
Yeah, and which by the way, they're still being mum on that new design form factor. They said it was going to be very different on the BEVs, so something to look forward to. And then the XPengs, they just had to have a separate event just for the super fast charging, right? 5 minutes, 200 kilometers. And what He Xiaopeng said that by doing this, the hybrids, you can say bye-bye to hybrids. And also kind of a shot, a silent shot. There was a CNEV Post article about competition between super fast charging and battery swapping, right? And which I said, my point is, I don't think one is better than the others. I think it's at the end of the day, it's your users, your customers, what you're doing to serve them well, and charging is part of it. So whether it's super fast charging, whether it's battery swapping, right? One's going to work for one company, and the other one's going to work for the other companies. So for the foreseeable future, I think if you were to ask William Li, I bet he's going to say, we're not trying to, we're not all about battery swapping. We have our superchargings, right? That Norway station is a fast charging / swap station. So it's just trying to offer different convenience to customers. That's what counts.
And we also have to remember that although the G9, XPeng is trying to pull up the G9 into more of a premium status, Neo is premium luxury for the EV, especially the China EV segment at plus 450,000 RMB. So their vehicles aren't cheap. So customers, you would think that Neo customers expect a bit more. And if I was a Neo customer, I would want both. I would want supercharging and I would want battery swapping. I don't want either or.
Yeah. So offering the options, right? Rather than you're forced to being served on one certain technology or platform. So, and I guess the other ones are, so we talked about Li Auto, XPeng.
Why don't you tell me your thoughts on the significance of Li Keqiang visiting Wan Chuanfu?
This is not, I think the significance is this is not just any visit. This is a visit, perhaps one of his last as premier.
As premier.
Let's say auto company. I think the bigger picture here is the upcoming party congress, right? And after the Beidaihe meetings, you're seeing Li Keqiang,
where no Tesla vehicle is welcome.
yeah, Li Keqiang going to the south, Shenzhen, where these innovation, right, tech areas, and Xi Jinping going to Shenyang, the Dongbei, the northeast, where economy isn't that great, right? So I mean, these are signals, but I think anytime you have the premier either endorsing your company or endorsing the products that your company is involved, it's always huge. But when I think when Li Keqiang says that the purchase tax exemption, that this taxation preferential policy is going to continue, I think we already knew that, right? But in the longer term, eventually, there's a point where the taxation is going to be a issue, China's taxation, right, overall, because it's been in place for 8 years, so since 2014, and the purchase tax half off on the ICEs that are in place, right, it's also reducing the taxation revenues. So I think the longer term, there has to come to a point where EVs, these kind of policies will end to ensure taxation, because people will buy it not for the savings anymore. It will be for something else, right?
Yeah. Well, on the revenue side, it's necessary for the Chinese government to collect that to remain whole, right?
Yeah. So I would guess that they will extend it for one more year, 2023.
And know that part of that is they saw what the United States did. A little bit has to do with that.
So and right, I mean, here similar, you could say for Tesla. Are people buying Tesla because of the tax credit? I don't think so. Probably not the major reason, right?
Not at a million units in 2.5 years, right?
Right. Because it's that brand, or it's the products, right? So and
gotta give it to Tesla, man. They've just remained resilient throughout with effectively products that aren't very new and technologically advanced anymore compared to what is either recently been launched or will be launching in the next 6 or 8 months.
That'll be interesting to see with this shortened delivery times and combined with, the next few months' numbers to see this production export, right? See how that develops. I think
I could see Tesla reducing price for Australia because BYD just entered, because before BYD entered, they were the number one EV manufacturer in Australia, imported EV manufacturer. So I could see them reducing price to keep some of that sales volume with them instead of going straight to BYD. And then I could see them also adjusting pricing in Japan and Korea and Singapore in order to take some of that, what last year's volume would have been shipped to Europe into Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So,
and, time is money, right? So reducing delivery times is, right, it's in essence, so...
Yeah, and because that means cash too, right? Because if the faster you deliver your vehicles, the faster your cash cycle is.
And the other this cloudy with a chance of rain out into the future is this European utility prices. I think people should really take this seriously because I was talking to my source at Neo, and he said Q4 and Q1 2023, this is going to seriously affect supply. So watch out there. I think it's a warning. And what's going on in Sichuan and Chongqing, right? This temperature is in the 40s Celsius. It's a bigger picture, bigger problem here. So it's just this, wave of issues that the industry is confronting one after the other. Chips seems to be in the rear view mirror now, but there's these other things that continue to come at you. And we say many times, these companies delivering 10K or 20K on a consistent basis, it's not happening. It's because of these disruptions.
And that means the domestics on the mass market level are going to have to make up for some of that volume in order to get to that 6 million unit sales target for 2022.
And in going back to Keqiang, I think also what his comments is kind of reflecting the economic situation on the ground. So in a sense, he's saying we're going to continue this taxation preferential policy to spur consumption. Correct? I think that's my kind of read that this what the economy needs.
And if I'm reading into that even further, Lei, I'm thinking that zero COVID is going to stay around for a while because the taxes are staying around for a while, or the subsidies.
Right. Well, subsidies, there's no final say yet. It's going to end at the end of this year. Whether we don't know. There's been no discussions on that front. But
actually, let me ask you this that's kind of out there, because unfortunately, I have not been able to keep up as much as I could have this week. Are you expecting any major announcements coming out of the Chengdu Auto Show?
Well, I mean, not as significant as, let's say, an L9 or a G9, like those, right?
Right.
I mean, all these brands, let's say one of the Great Wall Motors brand, Salon, right? It's going to announce their kind of the macho model. And then there's these legacy premiums who will announce their, let's say, the EQE, right? Things like that. No, I mean, there will be definitely new models, but I think nowadays you see the bigger or the more significant models being announced at individual events. I mean, Chengdu Auto Show is really more of a, even though it's A level, it's a once a year sales event. That's what I would see it as.
Right.
Because on the first day, on the media day, you'll see salespeople at the stands, right? So.
Okay. I think this is a great opportunity for folks that are just learning more about the Chinese EV economy to learn about some of these lesser known brands, because that floor map that you posted on Twitter, it is peppered with domestic brands that we've talked about in previous episodes, but might not be familiar to many other folks who don't listen to us, like a Neta, like a Ito, like
Levan.
Yes. Even I'm not that familiar with Levan, but Adenza, right?
Yeah.
Like there's and Denza is Mercedes and BYD, so it's not some tier 3 city SOE that's trying to build an electric vehicle. It is two major companies that joined together to build a brand new brand. And I bring up Denza because 2 days before I left, there was a Denza parked in my parking structure, and one of the decals, it wasn't a decal, it was one of those logos. It was actually one of those stickers. It wasn't like it was a pretty premium, and it was like designed by Mercedes.
Yeah, that was the Denza X, I think.
Yeah,
that was unveiled at the 2018 Hong Kong, Macau, Guangdong Auto Show in June. I remember that very clearly because I attended.
And I'd never seen a Denza in person up until that point. So
It's basically a kind of a tweaked tongue.
Yes, I noticed that, but the Because I totally forgot that Denza was the BYD Merc
joint venture.
kind of collab. And so when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And so, yeah, anyways, but unfortunately, I've never been to the Chengdu Motor Show. I'm not going this year, by the way, as you can tell, but it would have been great to see, just immerse myself in more of the local brands, because we get to see many of them in Beijing, but there still are some, at least on the model level, that I haven't seen in person, kick the tires, whatever. So,
and whatever happened to the Beijing Auto Show, it just nobody talks about it anymore because it was
faded into the ether.
Yeah, it was delayed. And then it's just gone, right?
And honestly, Lei, I mean, we both plan to be at the Shanghai Auto Show next year, but who knows what's going to happen with that, right? I mean, my goodness, you hope that April next year, Shanghai will just be on solid footing, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, at least, quite several events that we probably can get to go on this side of the world, at least.
Yeah.
So, just to be in that atmosphere, I always like it.
Well, there's probably 2 or 3 events that you and I would like to attend this year or next year in China. Probably the Xiaomi event, the Jidu, the product unveil for Xiaomi. But like, can you think of any other in the next 18 months new brands that are unveiling in China that we know about?
I think pretty much there's no.
Well, there's that one that XVW guy might be doing, right?
Oh, so that one has been awfully quiet the last few months.
Yes, I've gotten my WeChats ignored, which is quite unusual because those people normally like to talk.
Very quiet, yeah. So there's still gonna be new brands, that's for sure. But I mean, but right, XPeng I think they're putting these messages out that they're 80 years old. So these smart EV startups, they're becoming old. Come to think of it, right?
Oh yeah, they're moving from they're moving to hunted from the hunter.
Right, and we often talk about the legacy years versus the smart EV startup years. They're counted differently.
Yes.
Right. So,
and if we think about so this year's NIO's make or break year because of so many launches. Next year will be Li Auto's or towards the end of this year, beginning of next with all the launches, right?
I mean, yeah, NIO still has a lot going on, right? The ES7, ET5,
so much.
They're going to Germany and other markets. Their NIO Day probably going to announce the Alps, their mass brand. CEO William Li, he's in the U.S. Maybe he left, but he was in the U.S., right? In their
Silicon Valley,
in San Jose office. So, and you can bet that this U.S. entry is now on the it's been on the radar, but
it's on his mind, man. It is on his mind.
Right. So it's going to get a lot more interesting
because what he's trying to figure out is what BYD's strategy is, and either piggyback on it or ape it or beat it, or one of the two.
Well, like John Volker said, if you're going to come in 2025, you now have 3 years to find out about what the U.S. consumers want.
Yes. Other than that,
there was that weird Geneva Motor Show announcement.
I didn't see that. Which one is that?
It's being moved to Doha in November, of all places.
Okay, so it's so it's not actually Geneva anymore.
The Geneva Motor Show being held in Doha. It's like,
oh man! So it's like a Zoom auto show. They're zooming. That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lee, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LeiXing77. XING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.